there's a lot of things going on in my noggin right now. Thoughts pertaining to identity and relationships, physics, and authenticity. I just bought a pair of running shoes because I want to get back into a healthy habit of moving my body, and it's been a few weeks since I've done any running, and I just went to this running store where the person that sold me shoes based off of trail running or running was in no way a person that ran. And as I kind of looked around, I recognized that I'm coming from a place of judgment. However, I didn't feel the confidence or the trust that the person selling me the shoes knew anything about the shoes other than the theoretical experience of wearing running shoes, because it was quite evident that based off of their fitness level, meaning that quite a few of them were completely obese, they weren't doing the physical activity asked of running shoes. Shoes, yes, not running shoes. And so I found myself in this position of like, does it fucking matter? It matters in the position of me looking for like some advice, some relatable experience based off of the shoe. Otherwise, you're just pushing me to fucking go online and not support a corporation that just sells fucking shoes. Now, all of that right there, the judgment of identity, stemmed from a conversation that I was having with somebody about their partner and or former partner about authenticity. And a video that I shared with her was one that I found myself a year or two ago, a recorded conversation between Nikki Giovanni and James Baldwin. And a segment of this conversation was Nikki Giovanni nearly begging James Baldwin to lie to her, to just do the act to her. And he said, I would never lie to you. And he goes, God, please do. You lie to everybody else. And what she meant by that is in his profession, when he went to engagements or met other people, he showed up as James Baldwin, right? And of course, he doesn't want to let anyone down based on how they perceive him. But what he's doing there is actually playing into the act. He's playing into the projection and or expectation of somebody else other than himself. And what she was asking was, you know what, like all these other people you show up for and you fake and you do the act and everything, and then you come home exhausted from that act and you unload on me and you're grumpy and you're miserable, and because we love each other, yes, you're vulnerable, but you also show me all of that shit. So for God's sake, at least once in a while, lie to me. And that doesn't sound like the best advice for a relationship, but I think the crux of that is if somebody's asking their loved one to lie to them, it's because it's a question of when the authenticity is happening. And more than likely, it's not happening consistently. We develop these acts and then exhaust ourselves by doing these acts, and it's completely unnecessary. So the last part of this little diatribe, this thought process, is thinking of a video I just recently saw, which was a young person explaining Einstein's theory of relativity. And why that applies is unbeknownst to me, other than the fact that I think that we can use mathematics and physics to explain a lot of things. So, in this explanation of the theory of relativity, this young person said, if you could imagine the void of space, and there's a single object in this void of space, and let's say that single object is just a sphere. You can denote any color you want to the sphere, but it's a single object and it's in the void of space. Now, by looking at this single object, you would not be able to tell whether or not there was any motion there. You wouldn't be able to tell if it was moving or not, because there's nothing to compare it to in the void of space. Now, having that said, if there were two things in the void of space, you would be able to perceive movement, but you wouldn't know, dependent on whether the objects are getting closer to each other or further away, which is doing which. Are both of them moving, or is just one of them moving? Again, you can't tell in the void of space. Now, the more things that there are, you're able to develop some identity based off of comparisons, based off of relativity. But it's the comparisons that are relative that are basing what the other object is. The other objects are needed in order to perceive the other thing as itself. And the very same thing goes for ourselves. We are perceived based off comparisons to other. It's how we deem good or bad or whatever, smart, or it's always a comparison of faster than, slower than, smarter than, bigger than, thinner than. It's this comparison that makes this relativity. And we live within these comparisons, and those comparisons help develop an identity. So you can exist somewhere in this freaking random, ambiguous hierarchy. So my recommendation to a friend who has been kind of attached to this identity that he's developed through his career and has carried on into his personal life, an identity that's really helped him become a success in business, but not so much as an individual who needs to decompress from all of those pressures. I asked him to consider this. Who are you in the void of space? Who are you without anything around? Who are you without any distractions? The fucking device, your partner, your kids, your home, your media, your social algorithms, your politics, your religion, your social dynamics, friends and family. Who are you without all of it? And that is the person you should be. Now, of course, we live in this whole construct of time and place. And I think that the time and place, if not discerned, as well as the whole disadvantage of developing an identity, which adds other layers on top of us, that time and place can also add other identities or layers on top of us that prevent us from getting to the core. So if I can show up, I remember as a kid, like going to church and wearing my Sunday clothes, my Sunday best. Why is it my Sunday best? And what is my best? What is this comparison? I would think that if I were to go to church, I would be accepted in rags. But it's this idea of like time and place. And it's not even to knock religion or that social situation, but it's just I think that people just don't know themselves. And we've just come out of a few years and are still in it where instead of shedding identity, people add more on. Even in the process of spiritual awakenings, when people have the aha moment, they go, holy shit, I'm not even a self, and they think that they've had an ego death, it's just the substitution of another ego that is now a spiritual one, and it carries a certain aesthetic of now I'm this, and I'll change my name, and I'll do all these things, and I'll do these practices. The question would be are you able to discern the real deal from set of identity that might be perpetuated by what you're putting out there and that people agree with and project back onto you? I don't know, but it's a hell of a question, don't you think?